Hello, everybody, and welcome to Feel Good Friday and Church at Home with Rachel. I'm glad to see you today. Today, what I want to talk about is something I read when I was on holidays. Was reading this book called Watermelon by Marian Keyes, and it is a total chick book. Like it is like all about a woman who is married, and the day that she gives birth, her husband leaves her for another woman. It's if you've ever read Marian Keyes, you'll understand. It's really quite funny, and it's very conversational the way she writes the book. But the way she writes in this book in particular is as if it's an ongoing conversation between the writer and the reader, as if we're sitting and having a conversation, just chatting away like a monologue, and it's actually quite hilarious. But there's a line in it that really struck me. She talks about, in this case, a young man that she's finding herself attracted to and confused about, kisses her on the forehead and then walks away. And she says something to the effect that, a kiss on the forehead is not something that books are written about or movies are made of. And that got me thinking about those moments in our lives that truly do have a huge impact on us, on the way that we feel and the way that we think, and the memories that we carry forward. Absolutely, the memories, some of our greatest memories will be of those big moments, or a wedding, or the birth of a child, or the death of a family member. Those things that were completely and utterly life-shaking and life-changing. But chances are most of us have those smaller moments that we look back on and realize, even though we didn't recognize it at the moment, that's the moment when my life changed. That makes sense? Those little things that we look back on later and say, hey, yeah, that was the turning point. That was when the road that was going this way went kind of on an angle and everything changed. And it didn't notice the change until later. And when she said that about a kiss on the forehead, I got thinking about how many times in our lives the greatest things are those simple things that don't look like they would change the world, but absolutely do. The thing that you remember forever. A kiss on the forehead, holding someone's hand. That moment when your teacher says to you, well done. For whatever reason, may not be the first time they say it, may not be the last, but for whatever reason, that moment of realizing, wow, that was incredible. I remember when I was 16, I was 15, I went up to my grandparents' farm and spent 3 weeks there over my birthday. So I was there when I turned 16. And we knew, we had an idea. My grandmother had cancer, and I think she knew. And so she was inviting the grandchildren who lived far away to come up and visit for extended periods of time. It was like she was giving us one last opportunity to be there at the farm. And I think we also knew that when the time came, that when she was gone, the dynamic would change. While Grandpa might still be there, it wouldn't be the place where we would all gather the same as we had before. And so I was up there for 3 weeks, and my grandfather and I were very close. And I remember him sitting in his rocking chair, smoking his pipe. Nobody questioned that he smoked in the house. That was just the thing. It was 1987. And he was sitting in his rocking chair, smoking on his pipe. He had his right hand. And I just walked up behind him, and he was bald. He had that friar tuck. He had the hair that goes around here, but the top was bald. And I walked up, and I just put my hand on his head, my right hand on the top of his head and my left hand on his shoulder. And he reached up, pipe in right hand, reached up with his left hand and held my hand with his left hand. And he just sat there puffing on his pipe, didn't say anything. He was not a man of many words. He was deaf as a post. But he just stood there with me standing there. It was just perfect height for all this. That moment is etched in my memory, and it is one that was not incredibly meaningful at the time. It isn't something that we set up and had a picture pose for, although I do have a picture of it. I'm not sure who took the picture or why, but they did. But looking back, that moment has become iconic for me because it symbolizes the relationship I had with my grandparents. It symbolizes the sense of who I was becoming and who I have become because of the time I spent at their farm, in their presence, learning from their wisdom, even though neither of them were people who would sit down and say, now here's a life lessons for you. We just sort of learned by osmosis. We were present with them and we absorbed their love and their wisdom. And that one moment of standing with my hand on my grandfather's head and him holding my left hand is like that moment in the book when she said he gave her a kiss on the forehead. Nothing earth shattering, nothing to write and make a movie about. And yet, when I think back, that moment is one of the moments that will live with me forever. I kind of wonder for all of you, what are those moments? You know, we can get into the difficult moments, the ones that changed your life, you know, and they were heavy and everything. But today on Feel Good Friday, what are those moments, those kiss on the forehead, the holding of the hand? What are those moments that were positive for you? Moments that maybe you don't really think about. Maybe it was the first time your dog or your cat came running to you when you came home from work. That amazing feeling. I don't know if it's happened with cats, but an amazing feeling when you come in the door and your dog sees you and it's like you've been gone for a million years and you are their whole world. It's incredible, isn't it? Or that moment when you're driving down the road and you see out of the blue, you see a rainbow. Or you see a child with like ice cream all over their faces and they're just happy. What are those moments for you? What are those feel good moments that are not, no one's ever going to write a movie script about it or write a poem. Well, they might write a poem about it or write a whole novel about it. But when you look back, they're a moment of clarity when you can say to yourself, in that moment, I felt joy. In that moment, I felt good. In that moment, I knew that all is right with the world. What were those moments for you? Let me know in the comments. Tell me about your feel-good moments, your moment when you just locked in a memory and it was one that you can turn back to once in a while and say, yeah, wow, that was awesome. I hope you have an awesome weekend. I hope that you are led to meet new people or to celebrate life with people you've known forever. I pray that you will see wonders and miracles in the world and in your own lives. I pray that you will have a weekend of rest and a weekend of being able to look back on that first week back to school or that first week after holidays or whatever it might have been and say to yourself, well done, good and faithful servant. You had a good week. If you didn't have a good week, then take some time this weekend to relax and get rested and restored and tackle next week with vim and vigor. God bless you. I will see you on Sunday for Gospel on the Go and on Monday for Church at Home with Rachel.